that the temporary road is going on the old ORNL, Oahu Rail Land Company right-of-way. That right-of-way is 7 feet wide. The road, temporary road, is 24 feet wide. We've been out on the ground and we kind of measured from where you would start, where you would put a temporary road, and where you would move out 24 feet, and then embankment in which to support that. And it's very close. And nevertheless, when they received the approval to put the temporary route on the Makaha side of Farrington Highway, they go up to and encroach upon both with the route that they're putting in as well as the construction material all the way to the certified shoreline. So they in fact had to get a special management area permit in which to encroach upon the setback area of the actual beach. So to say it's not going on the beach is a little play with words. And then if you ask old timers that have lived here since the turn of the century or early in the 1900s, Farrington Highway, from many people's point of view, is on the beach, especially on the west end or over at this end, where if you haven't been there in the last couple of weeks, you see where the sand has eroded quite close to the highway, and it tends to do that during the winter years. But nevertheless, digress from the temporary route on the Makaha side of Farrington Highway while the construction goes on. Now that's problem number one, is the temporary route. But worse than that, and this is part of my spiel, worse than that is once these $23 million bridges are in, it is very unlikely that extra monies will be found in the near term, or even in the next 100 years, in my opinion, to put another bridge located here and further northwest on this route on the Makaha Beach master plan. I think many of you have seen this plan. So in order for the master plan to achieve fruition and actually get constructed, a large portion of that construction project is the cost of putting in the Malka Road. Unless this Malka Road can go in, Makaha Beach and the Makaha Beach Park will not be combined. You and your grandchildren's children will not see this plan achieved. And for the next 100 years, 45-mile-an-hour traffic will flow through a very high-density beach park, separating beach users from the canoe holly and the showers and the bathroom. So that's my 2-minute speech with a slight interruption and deviation, but you can see how we can go from there as far as, well, what is reality? What are the arguments pertaining to the temporary route? What are the arguments pertaining to the master plan if the DOT gets its way and puts these 2 bridges in? I'll leave it at that. We can get into that in a second. Okay. About a year ago, maybe 8 people were involved in the public hearings that allowed the approval of the HDOT project and then the approval of the special management area access to the setback on the beach. About 6 months ago, with some neighborhood board visibility, maybe we upped the number from 8 concerned people to about 60. And in January, the Waianae Coast Neighborhood Board submitted a resolution requesting the Hawaii Department of Transportation to reconsider the direction they were headed with their project. At that observation that I made at that time of how poorly that resolution was received is what caused a small contingent of us to go into this Malama Makaha awareness campaign. We're at, in my opinion, although we're at about 2,000 signatures, 660 online, and a little over 1,000 manual signatures petition-wise. My gut feeling is we're at about at the 3,000 population awareness range in Waianae Coast. So we went from 8 to 80 to about 3,000 right now. To get this project to be reconsidered by the politicians and the Hawaii Department of Transportation, we need to be up in the 25,000 range. And I say that because our representatives that directly support the Waianae Coast, Representative Joe Jordan, Representative Karen Awana, refuse to budge on asking Hawaii DOT to adjust this plan. They are steadfast in supporting the direction it's headed. And then Miley Shimabukuro understands the logic behind what the community wants in regards to adjusting the Mauka side, the road around the Mauka side of the park, but she's unable to influence Glenn Okamoto, the director of Hawaii DOT, to do anything other than the status quo. But so in order to communicate to those three individuals, they have to feel at risk that their re-election many years from now, that we're going to be with this for many years from now, is a risk. They won by landslides, 3-1, but that was with low voter turnout. We have to get the awareness on the Makaha campaign so well known and so well understood that the potential for, instead of 10,000 adult voters to come out in the next election, but to have 20 to 25,000 voters come out in the next election, that could actually swing their 3-1 majority the other way. They have to feel some risk, because right now, you may have personal experience, I have personal experience, they are not going to budge at the direction we're in. I'm not going to speak for Ms. Kimberly Pine, because she's here. I'll let her speak for herself. I've heard your message, and I have some heartburn with the message, but again, I'll let you speak to that in a second. Now, I interrupted two people real quick, so, okay.
Two things. First of all, Miley couldn't be here this evening because she had a previous engagement. The person that was supposed to represent her had a family emergency this afternoon and was not able to make it tonight. My name, by the way, is Rodlin Brown. And I have lived off and on since 1948 on the Waianae Coast. I first surfed Makaha when Moko brought me to Makaha in December of 1948 to surf. I was the only female that was surfing at that time because we had to carry wooden boards. And I was 25 years before Rel's son. I have been an avid participant of volunteering here on the Waianae Coast for the last 12 years, ever since we moved back here. There are many, many parts of this that I have great question about. I want to know why 6 years ago, Scott Ishikawa told me, "Oh, Rodlin, you'd be so happy with the job they did on rebuilding these two bridges. Steel I-beams, all new timber." I said, "Well, Scott, how long are they going to last?" I said, "Are they going to last as long as I'm alive?" He said, "Oh, they're going to last at least 50 years. I said, "My God, I'm 75. Do you think I'm going to last that long?" Scott Ishikawa was one of these people that his word was his bond, and I believe it still is. Scott was the spokesman for DOT back at that time. Scott would get down with his hands and feet and face and everything in the dirt and checked a job out. He wanted to know exactly what he was being told was real. I think Scott told me the truth when he said these two bridges were well built. I want to know why 6 years later the DOT is saying, oh my God, our contractor did such a lousy job, we have to go in and spend $23 million more to rebuild them when we only spent $14 million 6 years ago. That's one question I have of DOT. Another one is the flood that we had in '08. Those were some of the worst floods we've had. Back a million years ago when Chin Ho bought all the land out there and built the towers and built this and built that and built Keeley Road Drive. And Keeley Drive is built on a water runway. It was the water runway for the water coming off of the Makaha Mountains, out of the valley. And it was just so nice and all laid out there that, well, my God, why not build a road there? Well, they've had nothing but problems with Keeley Drive from the moment it was built. And they will continue to have problems with Keeley Drive. It ruined the wetlands by building Keeley Drive as it was built. I have sat on the Sustainable Planning Committee to plan all of the things that are supposed to be built out here on the Waianae coast. This park is one of them. It's in the sustainable plan. We shouldn't be going around and doing things. Planning and permitting has done it to us for years. And I walk into those meetings and I say, yes, I'm Robin Brown. I'm one of the unwanted stepchildren from Waianae. Because I believe that that's how they treat us, as the unwanted children from Waianae. So I want to know why they're not honoring the plans for the park to begin with now. There's no reason. One of the things that they say is, well, if we don't use the $23 million for you out on the Waianae coast, we're just going to have to give it to the next in line. And fine, give it to the next in line for a project that's honest. But don't make us accept something that is as dishonest as rebuilding these two bridges 6 years after they were rebuilt. That's dishonest. And we need to know why they're doing this. What is the next project on the board? Is it someplace on Big Island that could really use it because they're as bad an unwanted stepchildren as we are? What is the next project? And do we need that $24 million spent out here so desperately that we're willing to allow anything? And is the governor so inclined as to veto all of our feelings to say, well, we don't care whether you like it or not, we're going to do it anyway? So, you know, Waianae. We need very desperately to get leaders together and take this on. We need to fight City Hall, not literally.
Go ahead, I need help.
But we do need to get out there and fight. If we believe that this is an honest fight, and I believe thoroughly it's an honest fight, because why did they do it 6 years ago, and now they're going to redo it? I mean, okay, so what? Who are you going to pay off this time as a contractor to build the road? If they did such a lousy job last time. It probably is, and it's probably somebody's relative. And the head of DOT, I cannot say bad things about him because he's a very nice gentleman. And his mother still lives here on the Waianae coast. And he was raised here on the Waianae coast. I don't know if he thinks he's doing us a favor or exactly what it is, but I want some explanation from people that have answers, like the head of DOT. Joe Jordan has a call on her at her office from me today, and I have not heard back from her. Karen Waianae has a call waiting from me today also, and not heard back from her. Kim had a call from me, and one of her aides got back to me, and Kim and I had a discussion about it earlier this evening. But we all deserve to know the answers. And we all need to get on our high horses and demand them from the right people. What we need Malama Makaha to do for us is get us a list, names and phone numbers of head of DOT, head of this, head of that, addresses where we can write them, emails where we can email, and we'll pass it around to all of our friends and we'll start to make answers. Excuse me for taking so much time, but I feel very adamantly about
I don't know Rosalind, I've never met her until tonight, and she could have spoken better for me. I think we're on the same exact wavelength. So thank you for that.
Should not, and nobody's gonna let them build a road anywhere near that beach. It's dangerous, number one. The design is just dangerous. Nobody's gonna be able to walk across these Mickey Mouse little bridges if they're there after the first rain. There's going to be no one to ride a bicycle. You can't walk, you can't ride a bicycle for 18, and we all know this is Waianae. It's not going to take any 18 months. It's going to take 3 or 4 years for them to do this project. We know how it
it's
goes.
taken to put the plants in down at tracks.
Oh.
Get rid of waste.
But
So so what I want to say is, the answer to the question is, we are not heard, no one listens to us, and they don't care about us at all. They're going to rip my yard apart. That road is going right through my front yard.
There was an article 2 days ago in Honolulu Civil Beat, and our side got to speak, and they also interviewed the Hawaii Department of Transportation, and they used 2 major excuses, which I've highlighted in this one side's paper. And that is that the bridges, the wooden bridges must be replaced, they're dangerous, and there's a liability issue.
Okay, but what's wrong with going on the mountainside?
Okay. And in the civil beat, they've raised the level of rhetoric in this fight now. They now say they can't go Mauka because they will destroy, their words, the wetlands. So they've raised the rhetoric on their lie, in my opinion, and they are fighting going that way for whatever, the honest, real reason they won't explain why. Okay, but when, between 2004 and 2011, the Hawaii DOT planned this route that's about to go in. They considered 4 alternatives. Alternative 1 was do nothing. Alternative 2, believe it or not, was to put the new route on the Makaha side. Alternative number 3 was to replace the bridges where they're at. That's what they chose. And alternative 4 was a Mauka route. All right. So within the scope of their planning, they considered the right route. And for various reasons, and I have a handout on their explanation, it's also online at malamamakaha.com, they chose not to go that way. And for really superfluous reasons. Nevertheless, I think when they did the 4 alternatives, they had no intention to do anything but replace the bridges where they were at. Now, they spent $1.6 million on the planning. They have the funding in the transportation infrastructure plan, all the money already there, ready to pull down, 80% of it federal, 20% of it state, and they're just dying to spend it on this. Now they'll say it's a $20 million project because they've already spent about $2 million. So they're dying to spend it as is. This is a really desperate situation. I can't emphasize that enough. Because
They have to use environmental impact statement.
no,
Don't even get me started. Oh, no, they
Well,
just-
ferry systems because of
no,
that.
no, no.
Well, don't they have to have.
during the planning process, we thought we could take their EA, which they did, and force them into an EIS situation. We were foolish, we didn't know procedure, but we went in explaining the reasons why an EIS should have been triggered. Because of the scope of the project, and because it's a state project, they're only required to do an EA. And oh, by the way, the state has has self-approving authority for EA. So, what we found out 6 months after the fact, and their response was, because no one challenged us in court on that final EA, it now stands as well.
But nobody knew about it before it was given.
Well, and also, they completed the EA, they filed it, you have 30 days to grumble about it. They asked for another, was it $600,000 to restudy the project for further construction. They turned the bridges, the replacement bridges, instead of 54 feet long, they're now 96 feet long. And they did it, they had the plans in hand, and before that 30 days was up, they submitted those plans and never did another EA according to those new plans.
So, in our opinion, they had a major project change and didn't adjust the EA or jumped to an EIS. But this has been pretty dirty the whole time, which makes us wonder why.
When did all this stuff happen?
It's all been going on since about 2003, 2004, when I got my first letter, when I had my first meeting, yeah.
But some
But
of
it
these,
got really, really bad the last probably 2.5 years when they did
Yeah.
that study, and they never told me that they had changed the project and lengthened and widened the bridges. It wasn't until after I, like an idiot, signed off on the SCAP, which is the stream channel realignment permit. I signed it, my neighbor signed it, because we didn't know there was a different project. We signed on for shorter bridges. They'd be exactly the width and length they are now. They'd just be constructed of cement. Wasn't it metal? It was metal and cement, I think. It wasn't what they are now. And so I signed it. They quick took their papers and they came to talk to us about all the property that they're going to be buying from us, unless we don't want to sell it, they'll just condemn it, and leasing from us, and taking away our driveway, moving it over my sewer and pipelines. I would never have any access into my yard. We can't figure out how we're going to get into my driveway without cementing our whole driveway. Our whole front yard would have to be cemented in, and they're not willing to do that until after their project is completed.
there are a number of various background issues that I could spend maybe 2 or 3 hours here on, to include Keeley Drive being probably the culprit of much of the trouble we're going through now. And also being an illegal connection, a portion of it, a non-permitted road by Farrington Highway. We could go into all that, but I'll save that till later when you have time. But the bottom line is, so this is an approved project, funded, been through all the permitting processes. It would be in bid, and they'd be breaking ground right now if it wasn't for Tom Bird going to OMPO and asking him to push it back to another year. So we bought us some time to actually protest and take it to the people. That's where we're at now, so that's where I need your help. And I think our biggest payoff in the short term are these Friday sign waving public awareness campaigns in Nanakuli on Friday afternoons. The other biggest payoff, but I haven't been successful in making it happen, is to get people like you and your neighbors and your friends to call up Joe Jordan, Karen Awana, Miley Shimabukuru, and Kimberly Pine, and explain what your position is, and ask them and bring them to task on why they're allowing this to happen. But I have to warn you, when you call Joe Jordan or Miley, they will tell you there's nothing they can do. This project is approved, and it has to go through because it's a safety issue.
That is not what I heard from Miley today, and Miley is a very good friend, and Miley
Okay.
will tell me the truth, or she knows I'll jump down her throat.
Okay.
What we really need out here, I don't know if any of you have ever been associated with a Broadway play or not, but we need an angel. We need somebody with buku bucks that has lots of firing power downtown. Somebody on the level of Chin Ho, whether it's Stuart Ho, his son, or Peter Ho, his grandson. The bank needs to get involved, the Ho's need to get involved, and we need help. We are not big enough to take on the state and the governor and all of these entities. We need power. And if you know people of power, then go after them. Get them on your side. Tell them what's going on. Tell them how this is affecting the Waianae coast. You know, it's like the first time my sister-in-law heard of Waianae, and she said, "Oh my God, you're moving to Waianae?" And I said, "Oh yeah, yeah. We have people with guns standing out at Kahe Point telling you that you can't come in here unless you live here." You know, so we need the Colleen Hanabusas.
I think she's still good help.
Colleen is still on our side.
And
Oh
she can
God,
still
yes.
help, but we need someone
But
who
she
knows
doesn't
her.
live Paulina any longer. We don't need the Jeff Stones that are only in it for themselves. We need people to get involved in this that have the money, have the clout, have the integrity that him and Joe and Karen and Miley will listen to, that the governor will listen to, because he doesn't listen to anybody. We're between a rock and a hard place. And if we don't all get off our tushes and get out there and fight for this, and it can't be little baby fights, it has to be big, blown out fights. We go to the television stations, we go to the newspapers, and we go to all of them. We don't just go to Star Advertiser, but we go to, excuse me, but I'm going to say it anyway, we go to that Republican rag. We go to all of the newspapers. We get them all on our side. This is not a political issue. This is a livable issue. And unless everybody wants to get out there and fight, there's not going to be any winning. I guarantee you. 2008, I was named the Volunteer of the Year for the entire state of Hawaii. I do know how to fight. I do know how to get out there and work. But you can't do it alone. You have to do it as a group when you have a fight that's this big. And I've been bedridden for 2 years. I will get out there and fight with you, but I will not get out there and fight alone.